A lot of work and a lot of time you've been putting in, right? What's your weekly rehearsal schedule like? Every morning? Every morning, all morning. I'm kidding. But yeah, and then you did a band camp before that, I'm sure, in the summer, right, to get ready. Well, you guys have done a lot of work and gotten a lot accomplished, so you have a lot to be proud of for that. Well, we're going to be looking at a few things. I've written a few things down here, and then Mr. Bettis, I'm sure, has been thinking about some things to talk with you about as well. Now I'm just going to be looking at some basic timing things and some basic technique things, so we can get a bit of a match on a few things, especially here in the front ensemble. And then I also have just a couple little things for the battery. Mr. Bettis, you have anything you want to hop in with just yet, probably?
Yeah, I really like the musicianship being displayed here. It's really good. I think there's a good pulse point going on. I think probably some of the things maybe going over here is we just got to watch our balance and blend, really how to learn how to play with each other as an ensemble, right? We got some strengths that are really up here right now and some others that aren't quite up to that level yet. We've got to make sure we just get it all out there. Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah. Some really cool things back here. I like your time. You understand the pulse with your feet back here. Good things. Bass drums, good uniform of technique. Right in the center of the head. I'm sure you guys are being told that all the time, right? Yep, good. Tenors, tenor, I should say. How come we're leaning back here? Is that just the rack and stuff? Yeah, you gotta probably just, that will help your playing flatter, you know what I mean? Because you're hitting the drums right now kind of off to the side, so you're not getting a good sound. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, those are my initial comments right now. We just got a cymbal technique over here. You may, I don't know if you're going to.
I'm going to touch a few things over there.
Go for it. You can do it. Yep.
Okay, very good. Well, one thing I think is really, really great about your program and about this program musically as it's been written for you, is performing it, but then also in terms of the personnel, like the teaching process that you've been putting in place and you've been subscribing to, all that stuff going so well for you. The result is you have a really sophisticated sound. So, in other words, the music has a lot of motion to it, and it has a lot of rhythmic demand, and you're handling all those things really well. A lot of times, maybe in a group that's not as mature as this one, for example, might have a lot of notes written for them, but they don't know quite how to handle what it should sound like in terms of pulse and time, and you do it well on those things. I'm going to identify a few spots. It's going to be mostly over here on this side that we really want to look at in terms of pulse. And so I'm going to pick on a couple of people over here, and certainly take no offense. It just happens to be that role. And what's your name, young man? Brandon. Okay, so Brandon, you have a lot of responsibility in the show because you're constantly moving around. Have you counted how many different instruments you play during this show? Well, you might count sometime because I guarantee you it's a bunch. You do a lot of stuff over here. Either you're playing the ride cymbal in one hand and playing finger touch on the sizzle with the other hand. You're switching over to maybe a hi-hat pattern, going to the triangle. You have the tambourine part. I forget what we had. I think you did the woodblock for a while. You did the snare drum. So you're constantly moving around, and you have a good setup. All this stuff is working well for you. But here's what you need to work on, Brandon. Every time that you change instruments, I shouldn't say every time. Many times throughout the program, when you change and you go to a new instrument, it's taking you a little bit too long to mentally hop on board with the pulse for that instrument within the ensemble structure. So let's say you're moving to the snare drum. It's taking you about 8 or 12 counts, maybe 3 or 4 measures of music before you're really locked in. And so I want you to be much more keenly aware of getting impulse right away. Don't take more than a couple of counts. Really don't take any time. Hopefully you're going to be so well nailed in that you get to start right away. But oftentimes, I think I heard that probably 4 times from you today, man, had to come down to a timing issue. You can play the part fine. You're doing a great job. You're making all the right sounds. It's just a pulse issue. So it's going to be one where the mind has to be able to connect with the hands with the ears immediately. So really work towards that. I'll talk to your director a little bit more about how to do that. As far as the mallet keyboards, you all are very involved. You have a sophisticated grasp of the 4 mallet technique, and we use that quite a bit. Good for you. Occasionally, I'll see some pointer fingers that are kind of too pointy. The pointer finger, we want to wrap that so we have a really consistent fulcrum. But every now and then I'll see one that kind of sticks out. Okay, so be careful with that. And what's your name? Brianna. So I was talking with Brandon about it a minute ago. Was that you have a couple of times where you're switching over maybe to a new mallet, or maybe you haven't played for a while and you to join in here on the xylophone. And just like Brandon had, you have to be aware of the timing things a little bit more as well. So a lot of times, folks, if there's a pattern going on and you're going to join it, especially joining it on a new instrument, that's where you have to be the most careful in terms of listening, especially in the front ensemble. If there's some key moments where we go with the drum major, that might be one issue, but it's usually going to be a listening issue, blending with the battery. And then the last thing I have is probably is for the bass drums. Bass drums, you have really cool music, but what it also has with it is a lot of unison patterns. Lots of times when you guys play all together at the same time, and it's sometimes, for my taste, it's a little bit much. So I would identify all those unisons and figure out maybe we should back off the volume, or certainly never overplay those unisons, because the unisons themselves, from a pitch standpoint, will take care of themselves. You don't need to overdo it.
And one thing I'd like to add, how about this synth player right here?
No kidding, yeah.
Great communication all the way through, especially at the very beginning. There's a vibe solo that she has to mirror, and she does a fantastic job. I mean, with a lot of space too. So great job.
And really good, good balance. Like you know your volume roll. You don't ever overdo it. You're kind of in your own little zone here. A lot of times you have like one person. A lot of times with other groups, some of the groups that may be a little bit less sophisticated or experienced, you might have electronics as either totally overpowering, or the opposite is we don't hear because of another role. But you're doing a really, really good job. So good for you. Do we? I guess we can play a little more. Yeah. Which part would you guys want to play again? You know what? Let's do the 7. Is that the let's do that part, because we did have. I think this is the part where we want to work with Brianna. Brianna, when you enter the 7/4 pattern, you're a little on the back side of the beat, so anticipate a little bit more so you're not slow when you enter. I know this is a tough spot because you're totally on the chopping block out here, on the grill. Bass drums 4/4. Okay, cool. Cool, so yeah, that's a good place for us to stop. Because I want to do that one more time. Because Brianna, you were even better that time than you were when we did the run through a minute ago. I think you were more keenly aware of pulse. It's when you're going that first part, you're a little on the slow side, and then you're right in. So let's get that just a little tighter. And Brandon, I think you can play a little more delicately in the hi-hat snare drum pattern. So think more about timing than about volume. Bass drums, same thing. Think more about blend than about volume on all those unisons. Let's do that again. Cool. And we're going to do it maybe just a couple more times. It's working pretty well for us. What's your name? Sometimes I don't realize it. Don't overplay the group. It's really easy to kind of go, I'm in charge, listen to me. And in reality, you kind of need to blend. Snare drummers, when you're playing on the edge, on the rim rather, at the beginning of this phrase, you guys aren't matching heights. So it looks like you're louder than he is, because the rebound of the stroke is quite a bit different. Bass drum's good adjustment on that for you guys. And then Brandon, when you move over to the break drum, sometimes you're behind pulse just a little bit. Okay? just a bit, so I'll let that burst a minute. Cool. There's not one thing that we asked you to do that you didn't do better. Good for you. Eric, are we back out of time? Or? Yeah, great. Okay.
Let's hear it for Aurora High School.